Hello, music fans. I'm here to talk about my top 5 favorite albums from November 2021. Kicking right off with my number 5 is an album that's a collaboration between Converge and Chelsea Wolfe, and the album's called Bloodmoon 1, which maybe implies that there will be a Bloodmoon 2, which I'm definitely looking forward to hearing more. This is kind of a metalcore album, I guess, but it's not what you would typically expect when you think of that genre. It's got a lot of sludge, doom, and post metal influences in there and some experimental stuff. It's cool to hear Converge bring in Chelsea Wolfe, so they have some female vocals mixed in with their harsh kind of hardcore vocals, hardcore guitar riffs. She does more melodic vocals than you would typically hear over that kind of music, and it sounds really cool. And my number 4 is by the band Obscura, and the album's called Valediction. This is technical death metal with some progressive influences. This is their 6th album, and they remind me a little bit of Cynic, especially Cynic's 1993 album Focus, because they sometimes do these vocoder effects on the melodic vocals that they have, but they don't have that much melodic vocals. It's more, the vocals are more on the death metal vocal style side. They also have a fretless bass sound, which is reminds me of Cynic as well. This is the first album of Obscuras that I've ever checked out, but now I'm going back and I'm checking out everything they've done, and it's all sounding pretty great so far. I've listened to about half of their stuff now, just going back, and yeah, really cool. I'm kind of surprised I didn't get into them sooner. They're definitely interesting and intricate kind of technical music and guitar playing, but also just good music writers. So I look forward to hearing more from them in the future as well. And my number 3 is by a strange group called the Diablo Swing Orchestra, and the album's called Swagger and Stroll Down the Rabbit Hole. I'd say this is progressive metal. I think Wikipedia calls it avant-garde metal. Yeah, it's definitely got a bit of avant-garde. It's got, the thing that's interesting about them is they've got this like swing and big band influence to what they do. So they've got, horns and instruments like that in with their progressive metal sound, and very cool. If you like a song like A Little Piece of Heaven from Avenged Sevenfold, imagine kind of a whole album of that style where it's like influence from big band and swing and show tunes, but it's still got this crunchy metal vibe and riffing to it. There's a lot of female vocals on here. I think there might also be some male vocals. There's both female and male vocals on here, so you got a variety of sounds. And yeah, cello, trumpet, trombone, synthesizers, guitar, bass, percussion, piano, lots of cool instruments going on there. And my number 2 is going to be a band I mentioned earlier, which is Cynic, and their new album Ascension Codes. This is progressive metal. It's not super metal. It's a bit more metal than their last album, Kindly Bent to Free Us, but not quite as metal as their first 2 albums, Focus and Traced in Air. This is their 4th album. It's the first one not to feature Sean Malone on bass and Sean Reinert on drums, after both of them unfortunately passed away in 2020. May they both rest in peace. But I'm glad that Paul Masvidal was able to keep making Cynic music, because they're a great band. They're very unique. There's not much else out there that sounds like them. I mentioned how Obscura reminds me of them, but they really are doing completely different things now. Cynic's not doing death metal at all anymore. It's more this progressive metal or progressive rock even. Kind of has more of the 70s influence, like soundscapes, like bands like Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Genesis. It sounds more like that than technical death metal at this point. It's very ambient, beautiful, and spacey. It's not that heavy, but there are still some heavier metal guitar riffs here and there. I think there was the odd kind of background harsh vocals, but those vocals almost, they aren't the forefront of the sound of the album. They kind of just blend into the music. They do the vocoder effects on the melodic vocals as well, and it just kind of sounds like an instrument. I can't necessarily make out what the vocals are. It all sounds kind of very spacey and cryptic. There's like interludes between each of the longer songs that are these short, like 30-second song names that are named after like that are just random strings of letters and numbers that presumably aren't random. It's some kind of code that I don't understand. So there's that kind of weird aspect to it. But it's a very beautiful album. They set just a beautiful environment and atmosphere on here, and you can kind of just get lost in listening to this music. They use a lot more synthesizer on this than on the previous albums, and then the drumming of Matt Lynch retains that jazz influence that Sean Reinert had. And last, I'll say my number one album of November is actually an EP, and rather than a full-length LP, and this is from the band Thank You Scientist, and it's called Plague Accommodations. And they're a progressive rock band. They've got some metal, some jazz fusion influences. So they have things like violin and horns on here. This is their second EP. They've also released 3 full-length albums. And this is just stellar as always. The musicianship in this group is amazing. I just wish it was a full-length album and had even more material. It's pretty short, just 4 songs, but it's really, really solid. It's solid enough to get it the number 1 spot of November for me. Hope you heard some cool new albums to check out here, and let me know if I missed any that you think I would enjoy. Until next time, I guess I'll be doing a similar video for December, and we're getting near the end of the year too, so probably going to make like a top albums of the year video as well, trying to think about how many to include in there, whether it's like 40, 50, a little less, because I've listened to so many albums this year and there's so many great ones that I'd love to mention. But yeah, I'll be working on that. Stay tuned. Peace out.